Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, how was things? Everything okay?
Sorry?
Is everything okay?
Yes, yes, Maharaj. Everything is fine. Yeah.
So we'll
Just the two of us today.
anyway, what can you do? Sometimes like that. Anyway, oh, there's another one here. Look. Looks a bit worried. Okay, so anybody remember anything from last week? We were talking about Devahuti. And
Different kinds of marriage.
yes, we spoke about different kinds of marriage. And the best one is which is the best one?
Done according to Vaishnava, Vedic.
Oh, best one maybe not to get married. Less problem. But anyway, yeah, the one where, you know, the father brings the bride and a dowry, and then the husband takes over care of the lady of the protege. And yeah, we were talking about how Swayambhuva Manu came with his daughter, and he offered his daughter in marriage, and Cardamone accepted. And he said, only until she bears children. And when she bears children, then I'll leave and take up full-time devotional service. What he means by that, it means it would be sannyas ashram. We can perform the full-time devotional service in any ashram, actually. It's a matter of the consciousness that we do things in. But it's far easier if the less diversions, the better. Of course, you know, we have to be able to absorb ourselves. That's another thing. It's not just that we can actually give up things that we're actually wanting immediately. We have to gradually be nurtured off them. So this is a process. Yukta Vairagya, using whatever we have in devotion service. So let me go back to where we started. Let's have a look. We're on 22, chapter 22. You know, first, chapter 20 was where Maitreya was being questioned by Vidura after the pastime of Lord Bhattvara retrieving the earth from the bottom of the Garbhak Ocean. So it was like a story which diverted from the creation. And so we're coming back to creation now. When Swayambhuva Manu is one of the Prajapatis, and he was mentioned as one of the last Prajapatis to be produced by Brahma. So this, you know, therefore, Shaunaka Rishi asked Suta Goswami, what did he do? What was the pastimes of Swayambhuva Manu? Well, Swayambhuva Manu is the
First Manu?
He's a Prajapati, but he's also the lawmaker for mankind. He's the one. He's a powerful king. He's the epitome of all the kings. Like Indra is the king of heaven, but he's like an administrator. But Manu, he's like the lawmaker and ensures that everybody follows their dharma. Otherwise, everything's a waste of time. So he's got a very important service. And so he's setting the example by this pastime. And this is why Vidura has been inspired by the Lord to, also ask this question. And this is a conversation that Sutta Goswami is referring to now. He's referring to how, Parikshit Maharaj was listening from Shukadev Goswami, and he asked a similar question, and so Shukadev Goswami answered by reciting, the conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. So it's a series of things. And so now he's referring straight to that conversation that Shukadev Goswami referred to. Is that clear? And so Kardama is speaking to Manu, and first of all, Kardama glorifies the position of the king. What his duties are. Kardama is a Brahmin, so he glorifies the service of Swayambhuva Manu. This is the nature of a devotee, to glorify others. And simultaneously, in glorifying that service, is actually telling him what his particular duty is. And so, we started on this 22nd chapter. I think it was Ambada who read to 20. And in this particular chapter, Swayambhuva Manu offered Devahuti to Kardama Muni, and so yes, this is the last word, is that yes, I'll stay with her until she produces children. So now we start with text 21. We won't read everything. I'll flit through to some degree, and we'll concentrate on the main points. We'll do that this week. So it says that Devahuti then, Swayambhuva left. He left for his own kingdom. And it talks about the activities of a perfect householder, because he's in the householder ashram. And he says that kingdom was successful, and he was successful in his activities because he never wasted a moment. It's the nature of a good leader, is that he is what they call achar. He sets the example by his activities, acharya. And so we read from, 29 to the end of the chapter about Swayambhuva Manu. And it says, although he was engaged in material happiness, so sometimes in devotional service we may try to overdo it, But no, we engage in the natural propensities of a householder life, but it's centered around Krishna. This is the point. He was always hearing about Krishna. When he woke up in the morning, they were singing to him about Krishna. And everything was centered around activities for the pleasure of Krishna. It says, therefore, his life was not in vain. In Bhagavad Gita, it says, a person who lives a life separate from the laws of the Lord, from the service, he lives a life which is in vain. It means for nothing. And he passed 71 times 4,320,000 years. I mean, in that way, that's a long time. And he was always thinking of Vasudeva. So So, you know, it's sort of diverse duties of men in general. Tend to think about Manu as being the one who offers the punishment, you know, Manu Samhita. But that's only a part of it. Punishments come from him, but they're only there if we don't follow his original instructions. That's the point. So he sets up the Varnish Ram Dharm system and the activities for human society. So therefore, Manusha, we're actually a human being when we follow the laws of Manu. And when we don't follow the laws of Manu, then we become a Tiryag. Tiryag means animal, two-legged animal. I once bumped into my friend. I went to see my father in hospital. As I was getting in the car, somebody leant against the door of the car and he said, "You don't know me, do you?" And I looked at him and he says, "My name is so-and-so." I said, "Oh yeah, I used to be his friend before I came to this movement." And he was saying, I said, "How are we doing then?" He said, "You were about 58 then." He says, "I'm going to retire soon, I'm going to eat myself to death." And he was meant to, he was going to enjoy, you know, now he'd actually worked hard all his life. He was just going to enjoy eating all opulent things. So, you know, this is misdirected. And to some degree, everybody's looking for these things if they haven't got Krishna. So, you know, Devahuti served, the next chapter it explains how Devahuti served Kardama Manu. Two main things, actually there's a list of things here, but Vishrambena, this is the duty of a wife, how to serve the husband. Would you like to know? Vishrambena means with intimacy, you know, it's an intimate relationship. And Suridena, with love. And, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Great respect, Gauravena. So there's simultaneously together, there's intimacy. So this is like on a material platform. And there's Gauravena, there's great respect. That's mutual respect. All the men are smiling now, but it's actually both ways. The men should respect the, you know, there's a big controversy now about how can the women, you know, the women's lib. Why is the women's lib? Is because the men are not looking after them, that's why. If the men looked after the women and set the example, then, you know, there'd be no question of women's lib. So it's twofold. We can't expect women to actually do it, follow our guidance if we're doing all kinds of stupid things. Okay, so, you know, with married life, there's a great responsibility. So the other things I'll read out. So main one is Vishrambena, intimacy, and Gauravena, great respect. But there's also, the wife should understand the desires of the husband. She should be very attentive, chaste, great love. I mean, love comes from when we feel that we're being looked after. We start to develop affection for somebody else when they have affection for us. Purity of mind and body, self-control, dhamena, sweet words, vacha, madhurya. Not like when they come home, "You're late again." "You're late again, your dinner's in the oven. It's got 3 rings round it." That's what it used to be like when I used to work, you know. If you were late home from work, you know, she'd have their dinner ready, but, you know, but it'd have been so 3 rings round, you know, with a graveyard actually shrunk, then shrunk again. Then you're left with just a crisp in the middle of the plate. But anyway. It's good to have things in perspective, isn't it? Giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities and vanity. Anyway, these are things which everybody has to give up. Kamam, lust, dambam. What's dambam? Pride, isn't it? Dvesham, duality, lobam, hankering, Angam. I don't know what that one is. Arangamcha. Madam. Working sanely and diligently. Apramata. So, you know, she served her husband in this way, and he was very satisfied. And so at that point, he actually felt compassion for Devahuti because she neglected her own well-being just to serve her husband, and she became emaciated and thin and, you know, dirty-looking, bedraggled hair. And so, you know, when he saw her, his heart melted, and he said, "You've served me so nicely, not taking care of the body, which is, the body is very dear to us. It's difficult not to do that." What can I do for you? She said, "You've given me everything, but now now it's your. I would like you to give me children. This is for a wife to have children by a qualified husband is an ornament for the wife." And so, she was like in a difficult situation, not looking very, you know, attractive in one respect. The devotee is always attractive, but to so make suitable arrangements for this. And so immediately he arranged for an aerial mansion. And this aerial mansion, you know, it had all opulences in it. It had, you know, waterfalls, you know, different birds, more to goodness birds. And anyway, you know, just like Alexander Park, I suppose, you know. You got all opulences. And so then, but obviously she wasn't, so then he said, she wasn't looked after, she looked still bedraggled. He said, "So go and take your bath in Lake Bindu Sarovara." So Bindu Sarovara is a lake which is, when the Lord came to this world to see Kardama Muni's austerities, he was so, you know, he felt so much affection for him because he'd actually also given up his bodily comfort just to serve the Lord, that he shed tears. The Lord started crying, and the tears which came from his eyes formed the lake called Bindu Sarovara. And so Kardama Muni, he told Devotee to take a bath in the lake, and she went into the lake, and immediately in the lake she saw this underwater mansion, and in this mansion were, you know, many maidservants, and so they asked her, "What can we do for you?" And so she told them, and they started to bathe her in all different, you know, liquids and ointments, and brought her body back to its natural beauty. And then they dressed her in all beautiful bangles and bracelets. And then, you know, and when she saw herself like that, all beautiful again, she started to think about her husband. And said at that point, as soon as she thought about her husband, she immediately came before his presence. That was Kardama Muni's mystic opulence. Anybody else in the scriptures we can remember this happened? It was Madhavacharya. He told his mum, he said, "If you're ever in trouble, just think about me and I'll be there." And so when his mother used to think about him, he used to jump from wherever he was and land at the side of his mother. So this seems to be one of the mystic opulences, that as soon as you think about somebody, they are drawn to you. So where do we go from here? And so they went round the universe, you know, on the honeymoon. And they went to all the best spots. Anybody know any good spots in the universe? Mount Kailash, that's pretty upmarket, isn't it? That's where Lord Shiva resides. Nandakanana, you know, the playground of the demigods. Have we missed any out? Anyway, wherever there was opulence, that's where they went and they enjoyed together. And then they came back, and he expanded himself into 9. And she was also a mystic yogi. She expanded himself into 9. And from that union, they produced 9 Matajis, 9 girls. And they immediately came of age. It weren't that they were babies, but as soon as they were born, then they immediately grew to full size. So that's where we are now. Would you like to hear a description of the aerial mansion? It might divert you from your service, eh?
Yes, let's do it.
Are you sure? Okay, I warned you. Be decked with all sorts of jewels, can yield whatever one desires, adorned with pillars of precious stones, increasing in wealth, decorated with flags, festoons, artistic work, variegated colours, embellished with wreaths of charming flowers that attracted sweetly humming bees, with, I thought it said raspberries, actually, it's tapestries of linen, silk and other fabric, with beds, couches, fans and seats. That's what, you know, what's a raspberry? What's a raspberry, everybody? You know, colloquially, not like a real raspberry.
Fruit. Or
My mantra is a boffin eel, no, go on.
what do you mean, like as in the fruit or the expellation of air through the... Oh, that's a raspberry. Or there's the fruit, or...
Well, that is another one, but I mean, I'm not thinking about that.
Or a phone.
A phone?
Oh no, it's like a small microcomputer. There's a raspberry.
Oh, you mean
Pi.
like an apple and blackcurrant, blackberry?
Yeah. There's also quite a lot of fruit-based microprocessors.
You think I'm asking that? I'm asking about a spiritual. No, I'm not actually. I'm asking a raspberry is somebody who gets in the way in it. When
Gooseberry.
Yeah, when two people are courting, or in a situation where, you know, everything's nice and balanced, and somebody else comes in, it's like spoiling all the fun. It's called a raspberry, isn't it?
It's a gooseberry.
It's a gooseberry, Maharaj.
It's not. Listen, who's in charge? Who's in charge? Right. So gooseberry, is it all right? I'm just testing. I'm sure it's a raspberry. All right. The beds, couches, fans and seats, artistic engraving on the wall. Floor was of emeralds with coral dice. Coral threshold as the entrance. Doors bedecked with diamonds. Gold pinnacles crowned in domes of sapphire. Choicest rubies set in diamond walls. Wonderful canopies and valuable gates of gold. Live swans and pigeons, artificial swans and pigeons. Real swans, think of the artificial ones as if they were alive. Pleasure grounds, resting chambers, bedrooms, inner and outer yards. Ooh. So, you know, it weren't like EasyJet, was it? You know, it was actually really opulent. So we'll carry on reading now. We're on text 22, we're on chapter 23. Yeah, so she entered the lake and they dressed her with all ornaments. And they travelled throughout the universe on this aeroplane. It says, Kardamamuni achieved such powers because of his being a devotee and not because of his proficiency in yoga. So, you know, this is making the point that if you want mystic power, be a devotee. It's not, you know, mystic power and abilities like that, they're a sign of, you know, that we're serious about making some progress, but they don't really attract Krishna. Krishna encourages that because we're going along the right lines. But what really Krishna's looking for is looking for the love of his devotee. And so, you know, when we start to render service in a loving relationship, then, you know, it's natural that he'll want to, you know, reciprocate with us. And it's, you know, Krishna fulfills our desires and at the end gives us pure devotional service just to make sure that we completely, but he fills them in such a way that we don't become attached. So that's his special mercy. So we'll find that sometimes he provides things for us. They're not necessarily, you know, so devotional, but, you know, we've got a hankering for it. It just, and, you know, we suffer as a result. And so we get burnt and then we give it up. So Krishna's always making sure that, you know, it's within boundaries where he can actually keep us from going astray. Has anybody had that experience?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes. Yeah.
I just have an experience. I remember that I was listening to a class at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and Jananda Maharaj was giving a class. You know, I don't know whether everybody knows what it's like to give classes at the Manor, but it's a real austerity, you know. And he asked a question, and there was, you know, pin drop silence. And then he carried on talking a bit, and he asked another question, and this time there was pin drop silence. And he carried on talking, and he asked another question, and there was pin drop silence. So this is what it's like to give, you know, a class at the Manor. And then he looked up and he said, what did he say now? Oh, and then all of a sudden there was this, sound, you know, this rusty hand went up, you know, the joints were like, and he said yes, and he answered in about 3 or 4 words, and then Janana Maharaj looked round at everybody, says, can anybody remember what he just said? And, you know, there were pin drop silence, nobody got the joke. But anyway. Okay, we'll carry on. I thought it was all right. Anyway, I thought it was good. There were only me and another person that sat, we were laughing his head off, and everybody else like, anyway. So we're ready for the next one. Oh, we're not, actually. We've still got a little bit to go in chapter 23. Then she, you know, when they came, she had 9 daughters, and so he prepared to leave. And at that, she was like choked up inside. She didn't show it to him. She smiled, but, you know, she was very upset. And that's at the point where she said, you've given me daughters, but they will actually go away and get married, who will actually be my association then. They will have a new life. And Jumala is saying, don't go, but he said, don't worry. He says, she said, one thing you haven't given me is fearlessness. So where does fearlessness come from? Vayam dviti abhanivasatat shat. Fearfulness comes from duality. Fearlessness comes from Advaita, understanding that we're not the body. That, you know, we're one soul, and we have an eternal relationship with Krishna. So she was asking for that. And he said, don't worry, you will have a son called Kardama Muni by me. He's already been told this by Krishna or Vishnu when he came before Kardama Muni after his austerities. And so now he was repeating this to Devahuti. Eh?
Kapila Dev, yeah? A son called Kapila Dev.
What did I say?
Cardamomuni.
Yeah, Kapila Dev.
Yeah,
I mean, it's obvious, isn't it?
it's pretty obvious. Yeah.
You know, sometimes yeah, yeah, it was Kapila Dev, and you know, he got golden hair, lotus eyes, and so he started to preach to his mother, and that's what we're going to talk about, especially in the 25th chapter, the process of devotional service. So there's a nice verse. It's verse 56. Nehayat kamadharmaya na vairagaya kalpate na tirtha padasevaya jivan ape mrito hisaha. This is a verse to learn. It says, every learned man knows that attraction to the material is the greatest downfall of the living entity. But attraction to the service of the Supreme, to the service of the pure devotees of the Lord is the greatest benefit. So he's more or less saying right at the beginning, become attached to a devotee. In other words, listen to what I've got to say. That's another way of looking at it. He's a great devotee, Kapila Dev. Actually, he's an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So that's his first instruction. We do, you know, Sango ya samsriter hatu. Association of materialists done in ignorance is a cause of bondage. Association of devotees is performed, even if performed in ignorance, leads to liberation. So we should associate with devotees. It's always beneficial, even if we're in ignorance. So even if we're out of it sometimes, just stay in the association of devotees, and they'll actually bring us back to, you know, on the path. The renunciation of Cardamomuni is chapter 24. She was actually saying that she'd been cheated by Maya. You know, she's actually a great yogini. She's a daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, a great devotee. And yet she got captured by Maya because she had a great husband, you know, a great devotee as a husband. But she just saw the sense gratification side. She wasn't thinking about taking advantage of his ability to give her Krishna consciousness. And so she was lamenting that. And that's when he said, your son will deliver you. So, you know, a woman should take shelter of the father, then of the husband, and then of the son. Should never be alone. Yes, so Lord Kapila appears. He appeared actually to uproot karma, jnana, and yoga, these three things. But to deliver, what is it? What's left? With gyan and vigyan, by given knowledge, devotional knowledge, and then by practicing it. That's how we uproot these three things, by practicing devotional service. First we have to hear, and then we practice, and that becomes vigyan, and then it becomes realized. And then there's no doubt about the other three things. We know what the real thing is. So this is what Lord Kapila came. So there's a whole 7 or 8 chapters on this process. Is there anything else we need to learn from this chapter? Just talking about his appearance, how the demigod showered, you know, him with flowers. And, okay. So then, Lord Brahma appeared to Kardama when he left. Or just before he left. And he predicted that, you know, Kapila, this is before this Kapila appeared, he predicted that he would appear. And he gave direction to both of them. Okay. It tells you about the different, what it was that Devahuti's daughters, they all married the sons of Brahma. Brahma produced the Prajapatis, of which Swayambhuva Manu was one. And then Swayambhuva Manu had a daughter called Devahuti, who married a son of Brahma called Kardama. And then the other sons, they married the daughters of Kardama and Devahuti. And then these nine managers populated to a great extent the unity. There were other other Prajapatis, but they populated the universe. So everything can be used in Krishna consciousness, that's the point. And then Kardama Muni started to glorify Lord Kapila. I don't know whether to read this or not. I don't think there's any real necessity. And then Kapila replied to Kardama Muni, the reason for his appearance. Whatever I speak, whether directly or in the scriptures, is authoritative in all respects. I have appeared as your son because I promised you before. That was in the chapter 21. My appearance in this world is to explain the principles of self-realization for those desiring freedom from material desires. This past was lost in time. I have come to retrieve or revive the knowledge of Sankhya. So Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, not the Sankhya of this atheist Kapila. It's a different thing. It's the original Kapila speaking.
But Maharaj, so I've heard about the imposter, the Kapila. I've asked who is that, because I've asked this before and no one seems to know who that is referring to, that imposter.
Well, it's Bhopadev. He was, that's in the Bhagavad Gita mentioned about Bhopadev. Anyway, he's not such a significant person. He's he's a Mayavadi or impersonalist. So it doesn't speak much about him. All Prabhupada says is this is not the teachings of the, impersonalist. He's just making the distinction that don't think it's actually get misled and start listening to this idiot, about impersonalism. You don't have to, if there's somebody who's not got much credence, you don't say too much about them. That's why you just warn against, listening to that so that people don't get mixed up. Because generally people get mixed up, especially in India. And you need to know these things, so you can explain it properly that he's not talking about this impersonalist. And then he instructed Kardama, he says, now being requested by me, go as your desire, surrendering all your activities to me, worship me for eternal life. Then you will always see me within your heart as super soul by your intelligence. Thus you will achieve the state of eternal life, free from all lamentation and fear. I will also describe this knowledge to my mother, so that she will also attain perfection and will be freed from fear. So to see the Lord that the Lord's always with a living entity, that the Lord is always with us, that's freedom from all fear. Did I mention it the other day? I think I mentioned it on Tuesday about this devotee was giving a class about when the sea was rough and that they're all on this boat crossing the ocean and it looked like it was going to sink and the one little boy who weren't bothered, and afterwards this person said, weren't you frightened? You didn't look frightened. He said, no, why should I be frightened? My dad's here. You know what I mean? That's what nature has. A son's completely. His dad can protect him from anything. So in Krishna consciousness, Krishna can protect us from everything. And so we're always, the son always knows that his father's only always going to be his well-wisher. So, you know, we have to see like that. And that's how we become freed from any anxiety. What's that verse? Bhakta Nishkama Teva Shanta, Bhukti Mukti Siddhikama, Sakale Ashanta. Bhakta Nishkam Ataiva Shanta. Shanta means peace. Bhakta is peaceful. Nishkam, free from, because Nishkam is free from any material desires, is only depending on Krishna. Bhukti Mukti Siddhi, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi. Bhukti is one who wants liberation. Bhukti wants material enjoyment. Mukti wants free, you know, impersonalist liberation. One who wants siddhi, perfection. Shakala Ashant, they can never find peace. We'll give you a chance to read in a minute. Break it up a little bit. Is that okay? Everybody's getting a bit fidgety. Karma, renunciation, attainment. So eventually, Karma Muni became situated in devotional service. He saw the Lord seated in everyone's heart as Shirodakashaya Vishnu, and saw everyone existing in him, Karanadakashaya Vishnu. So everything exists in the external energy is Karanadakashaya Vishnu, and the Lord is Shirodakashaya Vishnu within. Free from all hatred and desire, being equal to everyone, by devotional service, Karma ultimately attained the path back to Godhead. Karma Muni Ki Jai. Okay, you can start reading from text 1, from chapter 25. It's Ambada. Are you ready, Ambada, Prabhu? Oh, no, it's not. It's not Ambada. It's Bharti Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Chapter 21, The Glories of Devotional Service. Sri Sonak said, although he is unborn, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took birth as Kapil Muni by his internal potency. He descended to disseminate transcendental knowledge for the benefit of the whole human race. Sonak continued, there is no one who knows more than the Lord himself. No one is more worshipable or more mature a yogi than he. He is therefore the master of the Vedas, and to hear about him always is the actual pleasure of the senses. Therefore, please precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the most powerful sage, Maitreya, was a friend of Vyasdev. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows. Maitreya said, when Kadama left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of the Bindu Sarovar to please his mother Devhuti. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devhuti remembered the words Brahma had spoken to her, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows. Devhuti said, I'm very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses. For because of this sense disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and the Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feelings of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. Do you want me to continue?
No, you can pass it on to who's next. It's Gauridas Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. Text 11. Devahuti continued, I have taken a shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman, and between spirit and matter. Maitreya said, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions, and thus, his face smiling, explained the path of transcendentalists who are interested in self-realization. Personality of God had answered, the yoga system which relates to the Lord and the individual soul, which is meant for the ultimate benefit of the living entity, and which causes detachment from all happiness and distress in the material world, is the highest yoga system. O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formerly to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of material nature is called conditional life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, it transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size.
Okay. Got two more to do.
In that position, the self-realization by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. It becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him. Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path.
Okay. Krishna Prabhu.
Every learned man knows. Sorry, hang on. Every learned man knows very well that attachment for this material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the doors of liberation.
Okay. So there's one thing here. I actually quoted this for the earlier verse. The earlier verse, it should have said, Ne hayat kamadamaya. It's saying our activities, if one's activities should lead to devotion, to renunciation. And renunciation should lead to religious life. And religious life our activities should lead to the religious life. Then religious life should lead to renunciation, and renunciation should lead to devotional service. And if it doesn't, it's considered dead while breathing. In other words, we're wasting his time. That's what the last one. Now this is the one I attachment to the material, based on attachment to the self-realized devotees leads to advancement. All right, carry on.
The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies. He is peaceful. He abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Okay, so this Titikshasra Karunika Surya Sarvadena, this is an important verse to learn. These are the primary qualifications that we get when we become a devotee. We don't have any enemies. We're not a threat to anybody because we're not on the material platform. We only produce enemies when there's competition. So, sadhu, people realize he's not a threat. He's not interested in anything material. So he's Suridam is a well-wishing friend because he wants to deliver everybody. Therefore, he can tolerate so many things because he's on that platform. He's not thinking in terms of offending an enemy. And therefore, he can actually help people, give mercy. He abides by religious principles as a result, set the example. And by following that way of life, he becomes adorned with all, good qualities. Bhushana. Bhushana means it's like what's it now? When you get a degree and you get something on top of that, what they call that? It's embellishment. It's an extra thing. Become embellished with all good qualities. Okay, carry on. O mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment.
What verse are you on now? Sorry?
24.
Okay. Carry on.
In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced in the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin.
This is a famous verse. Satam prasangam mama virya samvido vajanti ritkana vasayanakata adyoshna apavarga varmani shraddha ritir bhakti anukramisha. So I can just explain according to, it says that, by a sadhu, sadhu sangha, what is it? Sadhu shraddha, adoshraddha. In the beginning there's faith. Where does that faith come from? It comes from association of devotees. So in the beginning there's faith.
Okay, thank you.
Then there's bhajana kriya. We start to practice devotional service. Or we associate with devotees, and then we practice devotional service in their association, become initiated. And then an alternate vritti, we don't do what we want, we do what the spiritual master wants. Therefore it purifies. So that's up to this verse. It says samvido, and then virya samvido. Then when we become fixed, when we get rid of our attachments, then we're not actually inhibited in performing devotional activities. We're naturally attracted to them. When the obstacles are removed, we perform devotional service. Nishtha, very fixed. And that produces a very solid or very nice taste, ruchi. And so, you know, it's pleasing to the heart and to the ear. This is what it's saying, ruchi. And then it says that just read the verse again.
In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin.
So yeah, he's freed. That's an art and vritti. And his attraction becomes just a shakti. It's a taste, we become attached to the taste, and eventually we become attached to Krishna. And that shakti becomes bhava or rati. So this is spontaneous devotional service. And then from that spontaneous devotional service, we develop prema, pure love. So everything's there in that particular verse. Just what's a bit sadhu sangha, the bhajana, what's it called? Satam prasangam, in the association of pure devotees, prasangam. It's all about association and hearing. I was listening to a tape by Prabhupada. He says we can go back to God by any of the 9 processes. And if we just hear, just like Parikshit Maharaj, you just heard. We just got to keep, you know, have you seen these? This is not an advertisement. These are the best things since sliced bread. You know, you don't have to download anything. It's all on there. And you just switch it on and Prabhupada's away. And, you know, you can carry it about anywhere. Actually, you'll see there's a plastic band here. The actual, you know, the card you put in, it won't stay in now. So it's a, you know, wrap a plastic band around it. But very, very important.
It is the best thing, Maharaj.
This will take you back to Godhead. What's that?
I was just agreeing with you that it is the best thing.
Have you got one?
Yeah, I have it on every day.
Has everybody got one?
No, where'd you get them from?
I have got one as well.
Get from
Manish Madhav Kumar. He's selling them.
yeah.
Oh,
We'll put your name forward. You get it.
yeah, cheers.
Hi Krishna, have you got one?
Not yet.
All right. Anybody else?
I've got one, Maharaj.
You've got one. Okay. What about Ambada? Ambada's keeping quiet. Anyway.
Yes. Is it from
It's
text 26?
We're on to 26 now.
26.
Anyway, I think
Those consciously
we'll carry on.
engaged.
We'll carry on 26 next week. Because I've got to go to another class now. So what we'll have to do, we'll have to advertise this and to get more people in, you know, tell them I'm doing some yogic tricks or something next week. They'll start getting a few more to listen. At least for that time. What to do. Okay. Hare Krishna, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
We'll see you
Hare
Saturday,
Krishna.
Maharaj.
Thank you.
Saturday,
Okay.
Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Be ready on.
You can get some honey, some real honey if you know where to get some from.
Okay,
If you don't, then it don't matter. But
we'll get some.
What do you mean by real honey?
Like local.
it means it's not got sugar in it. They don't
Oh.
feed it sugar, they feed them honey.
Pure honey.
And, you know, they get honey out of it. So usually you have to get it off devotees. You can't trust anybody else. Anyway, don't worry about it. It's just a thought that came from my mind.
We'll get you some of Tesco's finest.
Oh, all right. Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.